Okay, great. Good morning, everybody, and a big welcome to this morning's masterclass. My name's Ryan, and I'm one of the founders of Merchant Capital and the Chief Relationship Officer. I hope everybody's well and is seeing a positive uptick in your business's performance as we start to see the dust settling after what's been an incredibly difficult 8 months. I'm personally very excited for this morning's session, as during COVID, I've been looking out for positive stories in what's been a rather drab environment. And one of the few sectors that has had a lot of smiles, or a lot of things to smile about, is definitely the e-commerce environment. There's been a global increase in online sales during COVID. In South Africa, where the market is still relatively nascent, there have been a 29% more consumer shopping online now compared to pre-COVID numbers. It's estimated that online retail sales increased as much as 40% during the lockdown period. By design, us South Africans have always been mall rats. However, due to the convenience associated with online retail purchases and obvious concerns linked to going in store, according to a recent McKinsey report on sentiment in South Africa, over 40% of consumers intend to increase their online shopping spend compared to traditional in-store purchasing, even after the corona crisis has passed. As a sample of one, I can certainly vouch for this, as every day and sometimes multiple times in the same day, either Takealot, Zulzi, or Superbalist are delivering something to my house. My wife has she's very good at online shopping. So with that, I'd like to introduce this morning's speaker, Warwick Kearns. A little bit about Warwick. He spent a significant portion of his career in e-commerce. He founded an online store called Action Gear in 2010 and exited the business in 2018. He lectures on the subject of e-commerce at Wits Business School. He started Insaka eCommerce Academy in 2017 and has made it his business to assist entrepreneurs to take their businesses online. The business has assisted thousands of entrepreneurs achieve success online and has been approved as Africa's only Shopify education partner. The construct of this morning's webinar will be Warwick will present for 45 minutes and then there'll be approximately 10 minutes for Q&A. If you could post your questions in the chat box on the right-hand side, I will then ask them to Warwick. Looking forward to a fantastic hour's discussion, and over to you, Warwick.
Thanks, Ron. Thank you very much for having me and for inviting me to come on and present about e-commerce to everybody who's listening here today. So thanks very much for joining and taking time out of your busy schedule to be here today to learn about e-commerce and to learn about something new, an opportunity that is a very real one. As Ryan said in the intro, a lot of industries have been hit hard this year, but e-commerce is one of the few industries that has seen significant growth through this year. And not only, when you think about all of the industries that have been growing through 2020, a lot of them are very exciting, like robotics and cybersecurity and healthcare and a few sectors that have seen that growth. But of all of the sectors that have been growing, e-commerce is really one of the few that is attainable and accessible for an entrepreneur just like yourselves to be able to start a business and to do so relatively easy by taking the steps that I share with you this morning and putting those into action. So what I want to do is go ahead and share my screen so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. And I'm going to go through. So any questions, pop them in the comments section or the chat box, and then I will get to them in the end. So I believe you can see my screen, and that's me, Warwick Kearns, the founder of the Insaka eCommerce Academy, South Africa's e-commerce expert. And of course, this morning, we're talking about the 5 steps that you can take to start a successful e-commerce business. So let me go ahead and dive straight into the presentation, because this is what you're going to learn by hanging out with us today. First up, I'm going to take you through some steps to find the right products to sell. And this is really crucial because if you don't have great winning products to put on your website, then you're not going to see a lot of sales on your site. So this is really the first step. It is the beginning, the part to get right first. After that, we'll jump into deciding on the right content management platform, CMS. What website platform builder would you use to build your website on? From there, we jump into setting up online payments. I know a lot of people get hung up by what you would need to do to be able to take credit card payments on your website, and if that's even possible for you. Well, the good news is that it is, and I'll show you how easy in that step. Step 4 is once your website is up and running and you've got payments enabled, how do we go about and get our first few sales? I've got some great tips to share with you there. And step 5 is how to deliver those orders to your customers. Because heck, sometimes it's a bit scary and exciting at the same time when you get that first order and then you've got to figure out what to do with it. But I always like to over deliver. So even though I said this is a 5 steps to starting your online store, I've got a step number 6, just to talk about how much time would this take you to do. But what I want to do is suggest that you guys stick around with us to the end of the presentation this morning, because at the end, I'm going to give you guys free access to a list of over 150 suppliers, people who have products that they are already selling online. And I've got their contact details. They're willing to work with you. So if you're coming into the market, I know that one of the biggest hurdles where I'm going to start out with is how to find products to sell online. Well, I've solved that problem for you. And if you stick around to the end, I'll give you that list for free. So hang around. But before I get into that, I want to share how e-commerce has changed my life and my business. It's allowed me to do really cool stuff, like take sabbaticals off, where my wife and I cycled from Johannesburg to Kilimanjaro on single speed bikes for charity and then climbed the mountain. It's allowed me to pursue my passion for mountain biking, which takes up a lot of time to train and compete in mountain biking. That picture is me and my buddy at my racing partner at Sani to see where we finished 7th overall. And running an online store gives me the time to put into my passions and my hobby and to do cool stuff. Another cool thing that I just wrapped up last year for my birthday, we went gorilla trekking, which I don't know if I could do if I was working in a 9-to-5 job, but e-commerce certainly gives me the time, the flexibility, and the money to be able to do that kind of stuff. And I want that for everybody else too. Now, a quick recap of my story, which Ryan touched on a little bit a minute ago, but it goes far back to university days and even school days where I always had an entrepreneurial spirit, and I was always starting different businesses. Heck, I was selling burritos rolls in school breaks, and I was that kid always trying to sell stuff at school, always trying to start different businesses, but none of them really took off. During university, I started promotions businesses, bartending businesses, all kinds of things, tourism businesses, and none of them really worked. None of them worked out at all. So when I finished up my studies, what I decided to do was go across to the UK with the intention of getting some experience in a first world country, so that I could see what was working there and then hopefully bring it home. When I got to the UK, I quickly ran out of money and I was looking for any job at all, somebody who would give me money so I could pay my rent and not get kicked out. The job that I got ended up being in an online store, an e-commerce business. And at that point, I'd had no experience, no exposure to e-commerce at all. But I joined that business and the timing was just right. The business was small when I joined and it just exploded. It was off the basis of e-commerce exploding across Europe, and we were selling some really cool products. So in the growth of that business, I must have had some great impact, because in 2009, I was selected as London's Outstanding Young Business Person of the Year in the HSBC Business Awards. So the experience in the first world country and having won that award gave me the confidence and the clarity to move back home and to start my own store. And of course, I knew e-commerce was the place to do that. And that was in 2010. Again, I blew all my cash and I ended up moving back in with my parents trying to start this business. And at the end of the day, when I started the business, I had 8,700 Rand. I put together a website, I bought some inventory, and I sold that stock. I sold it online, and I just had enough money to buy some more stock. Brought that stock in, and I sold it, and I bought more, and I sold more. And I learned everything the hard way through trial and error. And back then, everything was far more difficult than what I'll share with you today, because it's far easier to start a website and to get up and running than it was when I started out. And I'm going to share those tips with you. You know, fast forward just 3 years later, in 2013 was when I did my first 1 million Rand month, and that felt really cool. 2 years after that, in 2015, my website Action Gear, the business that I started, we were selected as a winner of one of the top awards in the South African e-commerce awards. So there again, it bolstered my confidence that we were on the right track. And at that time, I started getting approached by a lot of entrepreneurs, people seeing our success and seeing the awards that we had won, and asking me how they could start their own online store. And they were asking me a lot of the same questions which I had to overcome right in the beginning. And although I knew the answers to all these questions that people had, I was busy running a business, so I didn't really have the time and the availability to help everybody. And I started to feel pretty guilty about that. So that was why in 2017, at the end of that year, I sold Action Gear. At the time, I was doing 21 million Rand annual revenue. And I sold the business so that I could dedicate myself to helping entrepreneurs to be able to start and fast track themselves through the learning of how to have a successful online store. Because I had to do it the hard way, and I don't want that for anybody else. And that's where with the Insaka eCommerce Academy, my vision is to help over 100,000 entrepreneurs to start and grow their own online businesses. We've already helped a couple thousand, and I'm looking forward to hopefully helping you guys here this morning. And the reason I'm so passionate about this is because I really believe that growing e-commerce is crucial to uplifting South Africa, because it's the easiest and least risky stepping stone into entrepreneurship. And it's entrepreneurship that will create new jobs and raise up our economy. Now, I say that it's the easiest and the least risky because it's easy to start this business because you can do it from the comfort of your laptop in your spare time. And I'll show you how easy it is today with these steps that I'm going to share with you. And the low risk, the reason I say that is because you can start this business without signing a lease on a shopping center rental space. You don't have to hire a whole bunch of people. Heck, you don't even have to buy inventory up front. I'll show you how through this presentation today. So, geez, if it didn't work out, heaven forbid that you went down this road and it didn't work out, well, you haven't bet the farm. You haven't put your whole life savings into this. So it is the easiest and least risky stepping stone into entrepreneurship. And that's why I love to talk about this stuff with you guys today. So a few of the things that I'm doing to help spread the word about e-commerce is I do guest lecture to the MBA class at Wits Business School. I'm a board member of the e-commerce forum of Africa. I'm a regular author for the Entrepreneur magazine. I speak at so many e-commerce events right around South Africa, and I founded a community online, which is a free group for you that you can join on Facebook. It's called the Insaka e-commerce community. There's about 17,000 e-commerce enthusiasts in there, and you are welcome to go and join that too. And as you can tell, I'm a little bit obsessed with helping entrepreneurs grow online businesses. And any chance I get, I'm always sending out surveys and asking people like you, what is it that you want to learn more about? And the biggest challenge that I hear over and over and over is how difficult is it to start an online store? And so that's what I'm going to answer by jumping into these 6 topics this morning with you right now. So let's dive straight into step number 1, which is finding the right products for you to sell. Now, I've got to say, this is really the focus for you to get started, because you could have the most beautiful website in the world, but if you don't have a great winning product, well, you're not going to sell too much products on your site. So we've got to get this right. And I want to give you some criteria for what makes a product a winning product, a home run product, something that's really going to crush it on your website. So some of the things you can think about when you are considering a product to sell online is if the product is a recurring purchase or a once-off purchase. Because in my opinion, it's a far better business model online to have a product where people come and buy it again and again and again. A good example is the fact that I've been buying my dog food from one website for the past 6 years. 6 years ago, I found them, I put in my credit card details, and every couple of weeks, my credit card gets charged and a bag of dog food gets delivered to my house. It's great for me as a consumer, but it's even better for them as a business owner, because they don't just have customers coming once and then, you got to find another customer, but their customers come and buy again and again. So if you can find a product which is a consumable or something which people need to upgrade later on, then that for me is a winning criteria. Of course, the list of criteria that I'm giving you here are not exclusive. Like, of course, anything that is not on this list isn't like a tick list that you have to check to get a winning product, but these are the things that you can consider. Like the size. Size does matter when it comes to e-commerce. Selling couches and fridges online, well, it's expensive to ship those products around, and where are you going to store them? In your house, in a warehouse, you're going to have to pay some rent for that. So if you can have smaller items, it becomes exponentially cheaper to run a business that sells smaller sized items. Especially if you're importing products, the cost of moving those products across the world, it becomes quite a lot pretty quickly. So size does matter when you're selling products online. Something else to consider, if you are looking at importing products, you need to know the import duties and the local regulations before you commit to any product that you are thinking about importing. First up, let's talk about import duties. Now, these are the taxes or duties that SARS, the government, charges you when you import particular products. And to be honest, the way that you can look at an import duty is it's kind of like a penalty of sorts because South Africa wants you to be making or buying products from South Africa, right? So the products that could be made here, if you're buying those overseas, then it attracts a higher duty, like clothing and textiles. The import duties are up to 45%. Some other products like high-tech electronics, sometimes those have a 0% duty because the government knows that we wouldn't have made that here anyway, so don't worry about it. But you need to know what that number is, because if you start importing a product and you're running your numbers and you're figuring out your profit amounts per sale, but you haven't factored in the import duties, well, you could be in for a nasty surprise when that product arrives at customs and you get an invoice from SARS for 45% of the value. So you got to know this upfront and just work it into your numbers. Something else you need to know upfront is what regulations there are for any products if you're considering importing. If you're importing a product that you're going to sell to children, there's a whole bunch of NRCS regulations around that. If you are selling anything that has a Wi-Fi or wireless signal, then you need to get eCommerce certification for that kind of product. How are you going to do that? Is it feasible for you? What are the costs? It's about 4,600 Rand. And there's a delay because you can't actually start selling that product until you've got all the certificates in place. So I think you get the picture that if you are thinking about importing a product, you need to know what the duties and the regulations are before you actually commit to start importing that product. But before I move on, this isn't a deal breaker. This is just something to be aware of so that you know about it. I've certainly sold many electronics that did require eCommerce certifications, and we've made a lot of money doing it. So sometimes when it's a bit more tricky, a bit more difficult, that is actually an opportunity because other people might not be doing it. Now, let's talk about support and returns. When you're thinking about a product that you want to sell, well, something to factor in is what kind of support or returns is that product going to kind of create for you. If you are selling a complicated product, then you must understand that customers would want to email or to phone you beforehand to ask you your opinion or to ask questions about the product. There might also be the same thing after the sale. Somebody might need to phone you to ask you how to set it up or how to use it. And that is just something to be aware of. And also returns, like what is the expected return rate on these products? Because if you're selling any electronic or any gadget of any sort, you've got to factor in a returns portion. You can research these things per category, per product online, but even like Apple, their return percentage is 3%. So no matter what you're selling, if it's an electronic, then you've got to figure out and factor in that there could be returns. Of course, an item like biltong, for example, there's low support and there shouldn't be any returns. I don't think anybody's going to send back biltong unless if something's really wrong with it. So that's where you can just start to factor these things in. And then, of course, high margin and high demand. Now, I want to focus in here on high margins because sometimes online sellers are told by suppliers and by the banks that we don't need high profit margins because of the fact that that we're selling online. So we don't have staff, we don't have overheads, we don't have rental space, which is great, but every business needs to have high margins. Now, high margins it's the cushion that lets you fall back when you make mistakes. And as you're growing any business, you're going to be making mistakes. It's just part of the journey. If you're working on very thin margins where you almost always have no money in the bank, then any mistake that you make could send you under. It could make you shut down the business. But having high margins lets you have the ability to make mistakes, which you are going to make, and it gives you that cushion to just bounce back afterwards. Now, the demand factor is something that seems quite obvious. We want to sell products that have high demand. And I just want to highlight that here because we do want to make sure that people are willing to buy a product before we actually start to commit to buying that inventory of the product. You're deciding to put your hard-earned money into some inventory, so we want to make sure that it's going to turn itself back into cash at the end of the day. Now, I do want to remind you, for those of you that have jumped on a bit later this morning, that at the end of the presentation, I'm going to give you guys a free access to a spreadsheet of ours, which has over 150 local suppliers in South Africa, people who have products that they are already selling online. They've put their hand up to say that they're willing to work with you. And so if you stick around to the end of the presentation, then I will give you that link and you guys can have free access to that list of 150 and more online sellers or companies who have products that they are willing to supply to you. So if you're looking for products to sell, we have helped you out because I know that this is one of the biggest hurdles to people getting started. So I wanted to solve that problem for you. So stick around and you'll get free access to that list at the end of this. Cool beans. For each of the steps here this morning, I also wanted to give you an action item, something that you can write down, something that you can do, like the quick win, the low-hanging fruit actions. So for this step number 1, in terms of finding winning products, what the action item is that I'd like you to write down is to make use of Google Keyword Planner. Now, there's an alternative which is called Google Trends. Google Trends will give you an indication of the search volume, like how many people in South Africa are actually Googling a product. Now that gives you insights as to whether this product is popular, if there are actually people in South Africa looking for it. So you can use Google Trends to just see an indication of the growth or the decline of people searching online for a product, a brand name or a product or a category or anything like that. But Google Keyword Planner it's a bit more complicated to use, but it gives you far more information. You can get this for free. The Google Keyword Planner tool is a free tool within Google Ads. So Google Ads, previously known as Google AdWords, well, you can create a free AdWords account by just create an AdWords account. It doesn't cost you a cent. And once you've got that AdWords account, at the top of the screen, you'll see that it says Tools. Click on Tools, go to Keyword Planner. Then you can take keywords and you can take brand names and you can take category names and you can put those keywords in, and it gives you exact numbers of how many people in South Africa have searched those keywords. Google Trends gives you an indication. The Keyword Planner tool gives you exact numbers. Now, this is important for us to predict demand, because if nobody's searching for a product online in South Africa, then you're going to have a hard time selling it. But if you can see that people are searching these keywords of the product that you're thinking of selling, and maybe other people aren't selling it already, or they're not doing a good job at it, well, then you can see that there's a great opportunity for you to perhaps go and crush it in that particular product. So each step of this morning, I've got an action item for you, and I'll give you a few more as we go through this. But I've also got a real life story that I want to share with you for each of the steps. And in this step, I wanted to just quickly relate a story around York's Biltong. It's one of our students, Donovan York. He has a biltong shop in Brits, just beyond Hartbeespoort, outside Johannesburg. And he relied quite heavily on weekend traffic. All the Joburgers going out on the weekend and going past his shop and picking up some billies. And what he found was that it was very seasonal. Of course, during summer he was busy, and on weekends he was busy, but if it rained or if the weather was bad, he wasn't seeing much business. So he was looking at a way that he could move online and get extra revenue for his business. So he joined up with us, he built this website, and I said to him specifically, he should be doing subscription boxes because his product is really good. There isn't any tech support, there's no returns, hopefully, and he could do this on a recurring basis. So on his website, he turned on all of these subscription boxes, and now he's got thousands of people who regularly get a box of biltong, which he just sends out once a month or once every 3 months, and people love it, and he's got all of these customers on a recurring basis, and it's just a wonderful business. And now his business is actually more online than relying on people walking past his shop on the weekend. So it's a wonderful case study of somebody who's just crushing it online. But let's dive into step number 2, which is deciding on the right CMS, the content management platform for building your websites. When you're starting to think about building a website, this is a big question. And there's a lot of platforms that try and get your attention and claim that they are the perfect platform for you to be using. So it becomes quite confusing. And which one are you going to choose? And in truth, there's actually over 300 e-commerce platforms which claim to be suitable for the South African market. And when you're starting out, all of them do look suitable because they can all do what you were thinking. They can all achieve what you are wanting to achieve in the beginning. Because generally, when you're starting out, the ideas in your mind are, can I add products and can I take payments? And almost all 300 of those platforms that I mentioned that are supposedly suitable for the South African market, well, they let you add products and you should be able to take payments online. But there's a lot more that people need to consider when it comes to starting and building an online store. And one of the limitations I see with a whole bunch of these platforms is that they don't add the additional functionality, or they don't give you the option to be able to expand your website and to be able to do what you need to do further on down the line. And what I'm talking about here is with WordPress and Shopify, which are my 2 favorites, and they are the most 2 popular in South Africa and worldwide for that matter. The benefits of using one of these 2 platforms is the fact that they have plugins for WordPress, or they've got apps for Shopify. So as you start to build your site, in the beginning, you just want to add your products and take payments. That's all good and well. But then a few weeks later, you're like, oh, well, maybe I want to add a loyalty program, or I want to have a pop-up over here, or I want to do this over there. And on a lot of the platforms, those apps and plugins, they just don't exist. And so you're very limited to what the functionality the platform gives you, and you can't do anything more. So it might be good to get you started, but then you're going to have to change and re-platform to either WordPress or WooCommerce if you wanted to grow this into a proper successful e-commerce store. So these are the two platforms that I really do recommend. The difference between these two and the answer to which one you might want to choose, well, it depends on you. If you have some coding experience and you are good at figuring stuff out, then WordPress is for you. One of the massive pluses is that it's absolutely free, but the downside is that it's a little bit difficult to work with, and there isn't much support because WordPress is free, so there isn't a support team behind it that you could ask a question or get help from. So you really need to have a bit of experience or be able to just figure stuff out on your own. Now, Shopify, on the other hand, it does cost something. It's $29 per month, but the user functionality is super amazing. It's just really easy to figure out your way around it, to add products, to manage it. There's amazing help tutorials, and what I really love is that at the click of a button, there's thousands of support agents from Shopify who are just waiting behind the scenes, ready to answer any questions. So you can open up a real-time chat with a real person, and you can chat to them, ask them any of your questions, and they will answer you. They can also log into your site and fix stuff if you don't know what you're doing. So I just love that about it. And I do see that for people who don't have e-commerce or coding experience, that your likelihood of success is far greater on Shopify, just because it's taking away the headache of actually building the store. So you can actually get to the fun stuff about doing digital marketing, getting cool products on your site, and just getting sales. Now, I know that a few of you guys this morning have come via the Simply Blue platform from Standard Bank, and I actually met with Simply Blue on Monday this week, and I'm potentially going to help them to just kind of take what they've built, which is really cool. Like their platform, the big benefits are low costs, quick money clearing into your account, and just quite easy to work with. And hopefully we're going to work with them a bit closer to help them to see how they can expand out to offer some of these extra bits of functionality that I really think South African platforms, or rather South African online sellers, really need to be able to grow their business. But these are the recommendations for me right now. When I talk about some real life stories, the one that I wanted to relate in this situation was Mim Gerard, who she just has a wonderful story. For any of you that might already be in our community, that free group on Facebook, you'd probably know Mim. She's very active in there. And she had previously built her website on Shopify herself. She then hired a development agency who then rebuilt her website on WordPress. But the story that she relates is just that once her site was on WordPress, she didn't know how to manage it, and she felt like she had lost control of her business, and she says she lost control of her ship. So she wanted to take it back, and she rebuilt it on Shopify, and she's very happy now to have full control, and that she's learned the platform well enough to be able to build the website and to grow the business herself. So that's just a real life story from one of our students. So let's go into step number 3, which is a section that a lot of people get caught up on, and it is really much easier today than ever before. Back when I started selling online in 2010, geez, I almost needed a rocket science degree to be able to take payments online. Fast forward to 2020, and it couldn't be easier. There's wonderful platforms like Paygate, Peach Payments, Payfast, and so many others that are just built for this convenience. They are companies who have made it their business to make your business as easy as possible. So when I started out, it took me 3.5 months before I could possibly take any form of credit card payments online. Now you can do it in under 24 hours. When I've previously asked our community, we've run lots of polls to ask our community which platforms they're working on, what they're using. And when I've asked the community which payment gateway they like and which one they're using, we had 72% of the community vote to say that they are using Payfast. Now, Payfast is a payment gateway in South Africa who specifically cater for startup and growing and SME online stores. It's super easy to turn on an account. It doesn't cost you a cent. They only charge you on transactions. So you can go ahead and you can register on payfast.co.za, and where is it.com? No, it's payfast.co.za. You can register. It doesn't cost you anything to sign up. There's no monthly fee, And then only when you get a payment or an order through your site, then you pay a portion of that as a transaction fee. And the transaction fees across all the different payment gateways are generally around 3.5%. But because you guys are here today, I hope you've got your pen and paper ready, because if you go and sign up with PayFast after this, when you sign up, it gives you the option of including a coupon code. And if you put the word Insaka, that's the name of our business, our academy, INSAKA, it's in the bottom right of your screen, Insaka, you will get a 20% saving on their fees. So instead of 3.5%, you'll pay 2.8%. And if you are setting up an online store, well, that's going to save you big time in the long run. So I've put there also that if you have no business, that's no problem, because a lot of people get hung up on the idea that, oh, before I could start taking payments online, I need to go and register a business or go and buy a shelf company or any of that stuff. But don't let that slow you down, because you can actually go and register a PayFast account in your personal name. You can use your ID book, you can use a personal home address and your personal bank account, and you are good to go. You can start taking payments online straight away. So don't let that slow you down. In fact, all that admin of setting up a business, you can do that later. You can register a Shopify or a WordPress site today and register it in your personal name. You can register a payment account today and do it in your personal name. So without having to go and register a business or set up business bank accounts or do anything like that, you can actually just go and start a website straight away. You don't need to have any form of certification or any authorization. If you want somebody to give you permission, this is me giving you permission. You can actually go and start this business today without having to register a business. And then later on, if you want, and if this is working for you, then you can go and register that registered business with the government. You can go and do all the business bank accounts and all of that admin stuff. But right now, don't let this slow you down, because well, what I've said here is action step number 1 for here is to open up a PayFast account, and then action step number 2 is to turn on your site. Because the sooner you turn on your site, the sooner you can start getting traffic to your site, and the sooner you can start getting sales. And as I've just been saying, you don't need to have any form of business or qualifications or certifications. I am giving you permission, if you need it, to go and do this straight away. So you can turn on your site, because up until now, what we've spoken about is how to find products, how to select the right website platform and build it on, and then how to take payments. And once you've done that, then let's get the website live so we can start getting traffic to our store. And that is step number 4, which I'll get into in a minute. But first, I wanted to share a real life story about one of our students who had a really cool experience in terms of payments. Vosk shoes, they make amazing shoes. For any pair that they sell, they give a pair to the underprivileged, which is really cool. And what they were trying to do was trying to figure out ways that they could grow their sales. And one of the things they were thinking about was the fact that their consumers and the people that were buying their shoes were generally millennials down in Cape Town. So on their website, they were taking payment by credit card, but then they realized that their customer base, millennials in Cape Town, well, they want to pay with SnapScan. So they turned on SnapScan and their sales just took off. I think they added 28% revenue from the moment onwards that they added SnapScan, which is really cool. So it's just kind of talking to the point that when we are choosing payment offerings to offer to our customers online, we also need to consider who are our customers and what is the product that we're selling and how do they want to pay for that product, so that we can make sure that we offer them the right options so that we can capture as many sales as possible. So let's talk about getting your first couple sales. Like, how do you get traffic to your website? And at the time that you launch to begin with, well, you can start off by selling to your family and friends. And this is a great place to start, because your first couple orders and sales, well, you don't really know what you're doing. That first order that comes through, how do you arrange delivery? I'll tell you a bit about that in step number 5. But there's a lot of unknowns and things might go wrong on your first couple orders. So let's make those mistakes on our friends and family, people who aren't going to go ahead and write negative reviews about our website online, people who are a bit more forgiving, and people who are willing to give us feedback, honest feedback about the products, about our communication, about our website. And heck, that's a first place that you really want to be starting. You can also, at the time of launching your website, you can promote it to your social reach. Just update every link that you can on your personal Facebook, on your Instagram bio, on your LinkedIn profile, anywhere you can, because any opportunity for somebody to click the link and come to your site, well, that's a potential sale waiting to happen. And something that you might find a little bit surprising for an e-commerce expert to be sharing with you is that I really recommend selling your products in person. especially when you're starting out. It gives you another opportunity to sell your products, and you can do it at markets, pop-up shops, or wherever you can. But the real value of selling your product in person is that when you're speaking to your customer in a face-to-face environment and you can engage with them and ask them questions, it helps you to understand what about your product, or what is it that you said that led to somebody buying or to not buying? What questions was a customer asking you? Because all of that information can be taken from that experience and taken and updated on your website. Any questions that they were asking, make sure that those questions are answered on your website. Any features that you saw led to a sale, well, make sure that you highlight those same features on your website. And let's not forget the fact that we want to get sales. When we're starting a new business, we want to sell stuff. And doing it in person just gives you that extra opportunity to deal with people face to face and hopefully give them a flyer or give them a great experience so that they come back to your website later on and start shopping with you online. But how do we start getting people to our website? Well, I'll start out by explaining that there are two types of traffic. So when traffic comes to your website, it's via two different sources. And these are called either organic traffic or paid traffic. So paid traffic, you'd probably understand as being adverts that you might see on Facebook or on Gumtree or on Google Ads or anywhere that you see it online. When somebody is paying to get their banner or their advert in front of you, that's paid advertising. The organic traffic, well, that's the search engine optimization. That's the free traffic that you get. And the way that this comes about is really, I'll dive into this in a moment, because organic traffic tips, search engine optimization, this can be summarized into two words, really just two words overall. And the way that you get organic traffic is through relevance and authority, the relevance of your content and the authority of your website. So the way that Google shows you results. So whenever you Google something, anything at all, you'll see that the results page on Google, the first 2 or 3 results at the top, you might have seen that those are paid adverts. It does say advert and it's kind of highlighted in a different color. So those first couple of results are paid advertising, and that's Google Ads. I'll circle back to that in a moment. But beneath that, all the other listings, generally about 10 answers, those are organic results. That's the pages that Google thinks has the highest relevance to the query which you've typed into Google. So you've searched for what can I think about? Scotty dog haircut specialists in Santon. Maybe that's what you typed into Google. So now Google starts looking for which websites are the most relevant to what that search query was, and it will show you in a ranking of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you obviously want to be at the top of number 1. But having relevant content to what the search query was, well, that's just half of the challenge, because you also need to have authority. Your website needs to have high authority. And the only way to do that is to start building up the ranking of your own page. The best way to grow your own authority of your website is to get higher authority websites to link back to your site. And ideally, higher authority websites that are relevant to the topic that you're talking about. And when you do that, then your site starts climbing in the ranks and hopefully up to position number 1 on Google. Because when somebody clicks a paid ad, you're paying. When you're in that position number 1 and people click your link, well, you don't pay a cent, which is amazing. So it's very important to try and work on this consistently. The way that you can do this, one of my favorite things, is to write guest blogs. Right in the beginning, I mentioned that I'm a guest author for the Entrepreneur magazine. Now you can imagine now that you've learned what I've just been teaching you, now you might understand why I write for the Entrepreneur magazine. Because every time they publish an article for me, they put it on their website and they link back to insaka.co.za. And they are an amazingly high authority website, and they are linking back to us. And our website goes up to number 1 position because of that link. Something that you can also be doing is to register any business you have, whether it's e-commerce or a hair salon website or anything at all. Go and register that on Biz Community. It's a very high authority website and it's free to do. So that's actually an action item for you today. But another action item that I want you to do, if you haven't already done it, is to register your business on Google Business. Google Business is a free listing platform. You probably have seen this if you don't know what it is. Whenever you've searched for anything at all, maybe you've searched for Insaka, maybe you've searched for a local pizza place. And when you search for that, on the right-hand side of the screen, there's all of these bits of information about that company, their opening hours, their website link, their telephone number, some Google reviews, some images of them. And that is created when you create your Google business listing. So the way that you do that, you can write this down, is go to google.com/business. You can register that for free, and it'll immediately raise the rankings and the SEO of your website. But let's talk about paid traffic. So paid traffic is that not free platform, but it is a great free way, a quick way to get traffic onto your site, especially when you're starting out. And some tips in terms of paid traffic is retargeting. You know what this is? Is like when you go to Takealot and then you leave Takealot, you go to Facebook, or you're just browsing on the internet and you see that same product that you just looked at and it's now following you around the internet. That's not a coincidence, that's retargeting. And you as an online marketer, well, you can do that too. It's fantastic for generating sales, for bringing people back into the website and increasing conversion rates. It does work like a bomb. So that's something that you could also use for your business. The next tip here is to build your database. And you might see that you might find it surprising that I've included building your email list under the paid section. But in truth, your email database is really the only digital asset that you can ever own in terms of an online platform. You could focus on getting 1,000 likes or 1,000,000 likes on your Facebook page. And then when Facebook changes the algorithm again, it means nothing. But your email list is really the key. Your email list is something that you control. If you don't like MailChimp, you can put it into another platform, but you control that. And it's a wonderful marketing platform. And really, in terms of online business, you can predict the future growth of your business by the current growth of your email list. So I always want to invest in growing the email list, and I do put this under paid advertising sections because you really want to be doing promotions, giveaways, campaigns, collaborations, whatever you can. And even if it's paid for, because building your email list today is going to bring you sales tomorrow. When we go back to advertising, paid advertising tips, lookalike audiences, that's a fantastic thing to do. Now, lookalike audiences are something that Facebook offers, where you can take people who've come to your website and you can ask Facebook to go and find more people like the ones who came to your website. And what's even better is if you've had enough orders on your site, you can ask Facebook to find people who look alike to the people who've bought from you. And the algorithm knows so much about everybody, about you and about me. It's actually a little bit scary, but from an online marketer point of view, well, it gives us the opportunity to use these lookalike audiences, and it works like a charm. Let's not forget AdWords. So Google AdWords is the bread and butter of most e-commerce businesses. And if you are thinking about starting to put a budget into paid advertising, the rule of thumb of how to divide your budget up would be a good starting point would be to split your budget 60% AdWords and 40% Facebook ads. But then after that, track and measure to see where your sales are coming from, what's working for you, because heck, maybe for you, Pinterest is what works, or any other platform could be what works for you. But as a rule of thumb, when you're starting out, 60% AdWords, 40% Facebook ads, and then track, measure, test, test, test. But I wanted to give you an action item for this step, and that is to set up your Facebook pixel. Now, the Facebook pixel is what allows you to do lookalike audiences and retargeting and all of this Facebook advertising. And this is applicable no matter what kind of website you have. Do yourself a favor and set up the Facebook pixel. You can get this for free from Facebook. You can Google to find out how you can get it. The reason that you want to put that on your website now, and this is even if you aren't planning on advertising anytime soon, but as soon as you put that pixel on your site, it starts to track, record, and create an historical log of who's come to your site and what they did on your site. And then let's say in 6 months' time, you do want to do some Facebook advertising. Well, you can use that audience, those people that have come to your site, bought from you. You can retarget them, you can do lookalike audiences, and it's a wonderful thing to do. But if you only set up your Facebook pixel in 6 months' time, then you've got no record to work with. So do yourself a favor, write that one down and do that one ASAP. But as a real life story for this section, I wanted to talk about one of our students, Ryan Amory. Amazing website called Africa Made Only. And he's one of our students who built his website through us, but he also took the tips to go down to the Cape Town markets, and he sells his clothing in the stores. He drives people back to his website, and he's just grown an amazing business. And thankfully, by the time that lockdown came about, all the work he had been doing in the marketplaces had led to his business taking off to the point that through COVID, he's actually seen a mega growth. And he won a Investec startup award where he got 100,000 Rand invested into his business, or not invested, gifted to his business for winning this competition. So really cool business and just a great success story of somebody who's taken the exact tips I've shared with you now, put them into action and seeing amazing success. Now, the second to last step, which I'm going to just jump straight through, is about delivering your orders. Because once we get some orders, what do we do with them? How do we deliver them to your customers? So if you take that pen and paper and you write down the top couriers that I've found to be the best over the years, In fact, the most popular, according to polls that I've run in my community, is the courier guy. The other ones also offer fantastic service, but the courier guy is by far the most popular in terms of the courier that e-commerce sellers in South Africa are using to deliver their products and their orders to their customers. They're really competitive on pricing. They offer great service, so you may as well go with them. They are what everybody else is using. There is also some really cool tech when it comes to deliveries that helps to make your life easy. There's a service called UAfrica, which is just a tech company. And the really cool thing about this is that they automate the process of actually creating a delivery. So normally what would happen is you would get a customer order through your website, then you'd have to print out the order and write down a waybill and book it in with the courier or take it to Postnet or heck, even take it to the post office, but you don't want to be doing that. With UAfrica, it just automates the whole process and it's a lot cheaper. So it's a platform that I've been using for years and I'd recommend you could look at it also. And if managing products and inventory and deliveries doesn't sound like your gig, or maybe you're working a full-time job and want to do this on the sideline, then you can consider outsourcing your warehousing. There are companies who are specifically catering to online sellers, where you can get your suppliers to deliver stock to them. They will hold the inventory on their shelves, and then when you get orders, they will pick, pack, and dispatch to your customer. The customer gets tracking details. It's all online, it's all automated, it's all in real time. It's really amazing. So it comes at a slightly higher cost, but if you circle back to what I said earlier about having higher margins, well, then this is an option for you. So that does make your life a lot easier. Then you can just focus on the marketing and on the fun stuff. As an action item for this step, I wrote here that you could send a dummy order using UAfrica. So the UAfrica platform, they let you send your first order to the value of 200 Rand shipping costs. So if you want to test it out, you can go log in there, create a free account, and send out a test order if you'd like to. And in terms of a real life story for this section, I wanted to bring up one of my favorite stores, one of our favorite customers, students, Carolyn Ashmore, whose website is beautiful, beautiful website. It's called Atrium Plants. Now she sells pot plants online. So as you can imagine, the biggest challenge that she had when she started out was how the heck is she going to deliver pot plants online? Well, she had to overcome some challenges, but she worked really closely with the courier guy, packaged her products correctly, and got the shipping right. And by getting the shipping right, she now has built a website and a business that's doing tons and tons, dozens and dozens of orders every single day. She's hired staff and she's got a massive premises and she's just selling pot plants online and she's absolutely killing it. So well done to her. And as I did say in the beginning, I like to over deliver. So I wanted to just share with you step number 6 about how much time does it take. The answer is, well, it depends. It depends on you. And it depends on whether you're going to focus on the correct actions. A lot of what I've given you here today, this is a quick win, low-hanging fruit type of stuff that can help you accelerate your progress. And of course, yeah, focusing on those actions that I've given you. It depends if you're going to get guidance from our community, that free group on Facebook, the Insaka e-commerce community. If you have questions, go and ask in there. There's 17,000 people waiting to help you out. And it also depends on whether or not you're going to make this your priority. If you're going to commit yourself to this, because this, just like any other business, is only going to work if you make it work. And I've got a great success story to kind of speak to that point. Kudu.co.za is a website that you guys might know. It's one of the biggest gaming websites in the country, and it was started by Nalisha, who is one of our students. She had no idea of how to start a website or how to sell online. Went through our training, and she built her website step by step using our processes, and Kudu.co.za was the result. But the important thing to mention here is that she did it in just 3 days. So if you commit to it and you make it your priority, well, then you too could get an amazing website like Kudu up in no time at all. So to recap on what we've covered on, well, step number 1 is to find the right products. And I'm going to share that list with you in a moment now. From there, you want to decide on the right website platform to build your website on. Then setting up online payments, well, that's super easy with PayFast. Use that coupon code Insaka, you get 20% off. Getting your first couple sales, well, you need traffic to your site before you get online orders. So we touched on that. Then delivering orders, it's actually a lot easier than people make it out to be. So that shouldn't be too much of a hurdle. And then lastly, to commit yourself and make it your priority. And now we're going to dive into some questions and answers. But first, I wanted to share that link with you as promised. If you go to insaka.co.za/suppliers, that'll give you free access to our list of over 150 suppliers. So if you are looking for products to sell, and that QR code on your screen will also open up that same link. So just take out your phone, open the camera and snap that QR code. and that will take you to the link where we have over 150 people from our community who they have products which they are already selling online, and they have pricing, wholesale pricing, so that they can sell it to you at a lower price so that you can sell it at the retail price and you can make some good money off the back of that. So these are products that are already being sold online and you can sell them too. So if you need supplies, if you need products to sell, well, we've solved that problem for you. So snap that QR code or write that down in Insaka.co today, because I'm going to switch screens in a moment, or maybe Ryan's going to switch some screens for me, and then we're going to jump into Q&A. So Ryan, back over to you. Have we got some cool questions to dive into?
Yeah, I've got some questions for you. Warwick, thanks. So that was incredibly insightful. Cool. I was just following the businesses that you were that you cherry picked to speak to. That atrium plants business is something that I think is very, very cool. And I think that dovetails quite nicely into my first question, which is, you alluded to higher margins, and in a business like this, while you don't have let's call it your meaty retail expenses, and you don't necessarily have the big staff complement, are there any expenses that the people on the webinar need to be mindful of when dealing in the setup and the ongoing runnings of an online store?
There are, and I'm glad that you asked that question, because I suppose that's something that we need to know up front before committing ourselves to this process. So when we're talking about getting started, the single one cost to consider when you're just starting out is the cost of hosting your website. So if you have a WordPress site, it'll cost you about 199 Rand per year, and you need to buy the URL, the domain. So like takelot.com or Insaka.co today, like that's a domain, the URL name. You need to buy that. The buying of the URL will cost you about 79 Rand, and that's an annual renewal. And then if you're hosting with WordPress, it's 199 Rand per year, so it's not breaking the bank. And if you're hosting, or if your website is with Shopify, then the hosting is included. So there's nothing extra there. If you are using Shopify, it's $29 per month, which is about 480 Rand, depending on the exchange rate. So when you're starting out, the only two like really set fees are the hosting, which is not going to break the bank, and if you're using Shopify, that's $29 per month. Then as you start to progress, as you build your site, then there aren't a lot of costs as you go, but when you start to get orders, that's the next time that you're going to start kind of finding or coming across costs that you need to pay. Because as you get an order, well, that's when you're going to get a transaction fee from your payment gateway. If you're using PayFast and you're using that coupon code I gave you, that's 2.8% transaction fee. Another fee you're going to have to incur is a delivery fee, getting the product from you to the customer, or from the supplier to the customer. Generally in South Africa, like the average delivery fee, if you just average them all out, is about 78 Rand. It does become cheaper if you're sending in your own city in local deliveries. It becomes more expensive if the customer's on a farm in the middle of nowhere, but it does always average out to about 78 Rand. Then the other cost to just consider is the cost of inventory. I haven't really spoken too much about dropshipping today. Dropshipping is a process where you can list products from suppliers without buying it up front, and then only when you get an order from a customer do you pay for the product and send it straight to the customer. Really cool business model. A bit complicated or complex to get right, but on that suppliers link that I shared with you, it's insaka.co.za/suppliers. There are a lot of the suppliers who do dropshipping. So if you're doing that business model, then you don't have to invest any money into inventory up front. But maybe you do want to import some inventory, you want to buy some stock and keep it on hand so you can control that. And in that case, you would also need to budget for having the inventory, for taking your hard-earned money and investing it into stock that you're going to sell.
Great, thanks. You're setting me up really nicely for my next question. So, stock management. A lot of the people that will be on the webinar are people that have brick and mortar stores. So what in their decision-making process to go online, stock management becomes something tricky. Do you run, what is your recommendation? Do you run separate stock holdings for your online store and your brick and mortar store? because ultimately in an online store, as much as in a brick and mortar store, customer experience is very important. And I now go and I place an order for X pot plant because it's been on the online store, but all the stock has now been sold out of the brick and mortar store, and I have an inability to deliver, and I've got a let down client. So that's just the thought process. I'd like to get your view on that.
Yeah, cool. So I agree with you that keeping your inventory on your website up to date is very, very important, because you don't want to have that customer who buys, they give you their money and then they can't get a product. So the answer to the question really depends on the business and how up to date your own inventory system is kept. Because if your inventory is kept up to date in real time, so as somebody buys something in the shop, as that's scanned and sold off the system, does it update your whole inventory system? If you're using a sophisticated system, then the answer is yes. And what you can do is you can connect that entire inventory system, Pastel or Sage or any other, and you can connect that into your website so that it updates the website in real time too. I suppose there still could be a chance where somebody's busy checking out online and the product's sold over the counter, but the chances are slim that happens straight away. And if your inventory isn't kept up to date in real time, then perhaps, like you say, Ryan, you might want to divide up some inventory so that you have 80% of the stock on the shelves in your physical store, in that inventory warehouse, if you want to call it that, inside your system. And then you create another warehouse or a location for your online inventory. So it's just like having two different shops. If you have multiple shops, it's just like adding one extra, but this one is virtual. So that might be an easy or a better way to manage it, just to avoid that stock out situation.
That's good insight. And then the last question that was posted is, there are different devices that people can buy or that people can explore the store on. Firstly, what is the most popular device? And secondly, how do you make sure that the device that you are using actually scales so that the experience, whether you are on an iPad or whether you're on a phone or whether you're on a desktop, is as good?
Okay, cool. So I like that you're asking that question, because user experience is so important. And maybe you're asking that question because you've seen a website which you open on your phone and it's just really difficult to navigate. And if that happens, people are just losing sales. So you do want to factor this in. If you are using Shopify, that is done for you. If you're using WordPress, you just need to make sure that the theme that you're using is responsive. Responsive is a word that means that it's going to automatically adjust to the iPad or the temp to the desktop or to the phone. And it just automatically does that for you. If you're choosing any other e-commerce platform to build your website on, you do need to research how responsive those websites are. But Shopify is done automatically. WordPress, you just need to make sure that your theme does it automatically. Some themes do it, some don't. But ultimately, right now, more than 60% of your visitors and even your orders are going to happen through mobile. Previously, it used to be the other way around, where people would browse and shop on their desktop. Then we transitioned into this weird phase where people would browse on their phone and then the next day go and place an order through the desktop. I'm not sure why that was, but people just felt more comfortable buying through the computer. Nowadays, people just sit on the couch in the evening and place their orders straight through the phone. In fact, Payfast released a report yesterday, which you can get off our website if you want, in the blog section. And it's got a whole bunch of amazing stats, but they showed that throughout the last 12 months, 64% of transactions or orders have been placed straight through mobile. So if your website is not mobile friendly, if it is not responsive, you are losing sales. So this question is really key, and I'm glad that you asked it.
Oh, brilliant. I have seen that the clock has struck 12 o'clock, which brings us to the end of the session. Warwick, a very big thank you for the insights that you've offered. To those of you that have joined us today, I hope you guys have found it insightful and in your decision-making process. I hope this has added some food for thought. Wishing everybody a really good trade going into the festive season. Stay safe, and we will hopefully chat to you guys soon. Take care.
Thanks so much, everyone. Ciao.